We said the striking would be real tricky. We thought that the unorthodox and the unpredictable angles would lead to openings that he'd be able to exploit on. And while he did have a couple of moments, a couple flashes in the pan, exactly what we had touched on kind of came to fruition. Alexander Volkanovski is too good at neutralizing your game plan and taking you to a place in the fight where you cannot be effective, and he could rain down his supremacy. He did so. He looks like a world beater. He's at the top of the division. What is next for Alexander Volkanovski?
Ooh, I think he has to go up to that 155-pound belt, Derek. I mean, what else in the division? He's wiped out everybody else. Another greatest of all time to do it, Max Holloway, beating him 3 times, whether you want to argue it or not. But on paper, those are dubs. There's nothing else left for him in the division. He has to go up. He has to reclaim or at least justify that Islam fight. Because, again, everybody at the table I was at was agreeing. They thought Volk won that Islam fight. So I think this is a big push to be seeing another star in the making, a massive star. And you know what did it for me, Derek? What really shocked me and really solidified where I see Volk's growth was the footwork this guy had. Because we're talking about the Yair footwork and the Yair wildness he has. And Volk able to match it and output it was absolutely impressive. What do you think, Derek? There's no other shot besides 155. Obviously, Islam, that's kind of where everybody's eyes are headed to. Do you see another path that leads him to that same caliber of greatness going forward?
Yeah, I think he needs to keep smashing the guys in his division until there's literally nobody else. Ilya Topuria is over here saying, hey, you want to take the easy way, you want to fight Makhachev, which I'm not sure how that's the easy way, but it's like you want to take the easy way, you don't want to fight me. Well, if you put yourself in a position like Amanda Nunes or Valentina Shevchenko where you literally cleared everybody out and now they're scraping and searching and digging to find an opponent for you, then you can gracefully say, I have nothing left for this division. You know, until you find me a new suitable challenger, I'm going to take my talents elsewhere. Right? But until that moment happens and until you get to that Shevchenko level where you're 7 title defenses, right? This was the 7th title fight in a row for Volkanovski. I believe this was the 5th defense. Legendary, but there's still a couple names above you. Nunez, Shevchenko that are out there actually, you know what I mean, getting those defenses, at least at one point were. Now, I do think Makhachev is going to be a fun fight in terms of a rematch there, but let's just say this, AJ. What if Volk goes out there and what if he loses that fight again? You went up for the big leagues twice, you get shut down. I mean, you know, you have to come back to featherweight and you have to keep doing it. So do you think that the division will develop itself a new suite of challengers for him? Excuse me, or do you think that it's just going to be the same old story that we hear for all of these other divisions?
Man, I'm hoping there's a new storyline being told. I actually like the Ilya Topuria fight a lot more because it kind of reinvigorates that thing. And Ilya, as much as he is, you know, kind of in the limelight, this dude's been grinding for a while, so he does deserve the shot. And there's new talent going to be coming in for the 145-pound class that's able to grow that kind of division. But again, same point, we need to see a little bit more shakeup because we're drawing one name right now. You know, a couple names in there really need to really start making some moves to start clamoring for the division, because other than that, it seems like another stagnant division, which is one of the most, besides 155, one of the hardest and scariest classes to be in. But there's so many people, but very few that are actually at that upper echelon.
Well, let's not forget, we do have names like Aljamain Sterling, who is promising to come up to 145 to fight Alexander Volkanovski after his fight with Sean O'Malley, depending on how that goes, of course. And then, you know, we'll just see how everything else shakes out. But let's talk about Yair Rodriguez a little bit. Once again, man, I don't say any of this to be like the told you so's or any of that stuff, but I did kind of point out, like, hey, look at who he fought to get to this title, and they've claimed him as the big, scary boogeyman. And now that he has kind of been, how would you say, just kind of smothered out, man. You know, Volkanovski said, nah, you're not really that much of a challenge. Is that where we're at with, like, these contenders right here, where you fight a guy or two and you're immediately title contention? Like, do you see what I was talking about now in hindsight more than, you know, when we were speaking about it originally?
Storyline, Derek. Storyline is one of the big things that drives the casuals to the UFC. A lot of people hate the comparison UFC to WWE, but there are similarities because storyline needs to be played, and storyline sells the bills, gets the people's asses in the seats. And I agree with you. The Yair Rodriguez storyline seemed very dense. Turns out to be a little bit more fluffy than we would have liked, and it got exposed a little bit by Volkanovski with the ground game he had and the game plan going into it. So it's all that's why I'm glad you always pointed out, Derek, because storyline can get your picks going wrong in the UFC because
Hmm.
they're great at it. They're a machine, one of the best to ever do it. And you can start thinking like, damn, Yair really is the dog. This dude's been coming up from the ground up, knocking people out left and right, kicks like crazy. But Volkanovski, forget, he's also been doing the exact same thing in a different fashion. So I agree. I think the storyline here, again, another week of it being exposed for what it is.
Yep.
And that's kind of the problem we were talking about with the Ilya Tuporia thing. Like, are we going to be hyping up his thing next as the guy, or is this a true dog coming for the scraps?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. I think the other punctuation there is that when the UFC gives you a fancy custom Mexican interim champion belt and all that, it also adds a little more to that. So you're thinking, oh, they're setting everything up for this guy, right? You got to imagine Volkanovski's probably feeling away too. He's like, oh, you giving it? Where's my Australia belt? You know what I'm saying? But that's neither here nor there. Big win by Alexander the Great Volkanovski. We'll see what's next.